could listen to it on Spotify. Anchor.fm/podcast with a K for all of your favorite audio listening platforms. Anyway, hi, welcome back. It's another Sunday, it's another podcast. This is The Vibe, as usual. That first track you guys heard in the intro was Hold On by Justin Bieber, as usual, because you guys know that I'm obsessed. I'm, to this day, still, unfortunately, a believer. So every time we put out a new song, obviously I listen to it. I haven't really continued to keep up with any of the songs until this one. And I didn't pay any attention to it at first. But then the music video was so pretty. It was, like, entirely my aesthetic. Just, like, really cool, high contrast shots with the occasional neon. It was beautiful. And then I was like, yo, wait, this song kinda hits? I need this song immediately. So I've had it on repeat, like, anytime that I want to listen to something and don't know what to listen to. That's what I've been listening to. And that's what I've been up to. So if you're here, if you're in chat, this is where you can, listen to the podcast. Hello Jordy, hello Mac, hello Leo. I actually do have podcast stickers, so if you want podcast stickers, feel free to DM me your address, and I will send those out as soon as possible, because I have a lot of them, and I would love to see them literally everywhere. And that goes for everyone, not just you guys that I have just greeted by name. As far as how I feel about Selena Gomez is an individual with whom I never really concerned myself, although she does seem to break a lot of hearts, and the music we get from the artists whose heart she breaks is phenomenal. So even though she hurt people who I care about, the art that they got from it I think outweighs the harm that they went through. That's problematic. I'm gonna stop. That's not even why we're here. On today's agenda, things that are weird and shouldn't exist but exist and have been in my head, for no reason, alright? So, let me give y'all some background as to what's on my mind this week, alright? I saw a post of some random person on the internet, as usual, where I see everything, that said something along the lines of, as we know, the universe is ever expanding. But why? Where does it go? So this girl wrote to, like, a bunch of different scientists, because why not, right? So she sent them letters, and one of the letters was sent out to the legend, Stephen Hawking, who replied, "We know it expands forever. However, we do not know where it goes, but, stay tuned because we're working on it." So he very, like, openly said, "We don't know. Please hold," which I thought was cool. First of all, that he replied. Let's start there. Like, he didn't have to, but he did that. And the fact that he said, "I don't know," I feel like not a lot of scientists would bother responding to say, "I don't know, but I'm working on it." I feel like most would just be like, bro, like, if we knew, we would have published it. And it reminded me of something my father always says, which is, literally, just fill your mouth with the phrase, "I don't know." When you don't know something, you don't have to have the answer. You don't have to be obligated or feel obligated to have the answer to everything always, which I think is very fitting for this show, especially if you were listening to last week's Chaos. We talked about a lot of things while having none of the information or background to be able to properly discuss any of the things that were discussed. But those are the conversations I like, the ones that make you curious to find out more. So, hi Charlotte, my sister has entered the chat. What? Oh, so after I read that post, I looked up the universe being ever expanding because, that's just the type of thing that I decided to spend my free time doing today. Because this past 3-4 days, I've been filming for a project, which is why it's exciting to see Charlotte here, because she was acting in a thing that I felt like would take all of the energy in the world, and I thought she'd be knocked out by now. Because I was recording for it, and that was exhausting, so imagine acting in it. So in my spare time was when I was scrolling on break from shooting, and I was just looking up, like, the universe being ever expanding, and then I fell down a rabbit hole of weird things that are interesting and kind of sciencey, kind of not, but that I don't understand and that scientists themselves don't understand, and it's in my mind. Um, to answer the chat's questions and anyone who happens to be viewing this later in the future and wondering why I'm being bullied on the internet, this is not being filmed on an Android. As I explained, my camera is frozen for reasons unknown, and I do not wish to spend any more podcast time working on technical difficulties, because I feel like I could make an entire podcast episode compilation of just amounts of times when I've tried to fix things live. So now, the good thing about doing this remotely for the time being is that I can just scrap that and do something else without worrying about breaking anything as I would in the studio. Yeah, also, something that I don't understand and will never understand, and scientists will never understand, is why app developers hate Android so much. Because, as I have to explain every single time, Android cameras are fine. It's just the devs make so that, like, whenever you're posting a story on Snapchat or Instagram, it screen records and posts the screen recording or something similar to this degree. It doesn't actually shoot through the camera. iPhones do, which is why the quality is pristine. And Snapchat themselves were like, yo, sorry we did y'all so dirty, Android users. Here's a mega update where we finally got access to like a bunch of different features that only iPhone had. But they still won't fix the camera. Super sad. Anyway, none of this is what I was going to talk about. This is just a long stream of consciousness and the most chaotic introduction I think we've ever had on this show. What I did want to talk about was a bunch of different weird things. I think I mentioned that. I did mention that. So, from the universe being ever expanding, we went on to quantum entanglement. What is quantum entanglement, you may ask? I don't know what quantum entanglement is. However, it has to do with quantum physics, and it reminded me of what's it called? Schrodinger's cat? Let me make sure that this is correct so that I don't sound dumb in a podcast. Yes, this is exactly the thing that I was thinking of. It's a hypothetical cat who may be considered simultaneously both alive and dead as a result of being linked to a random subatomic event that may or may not occur. Essentially, what this means is, or at least my interpretation of it, it's about where something that is unobserved will exist in a different state than something that is observed. By observing something, you are essentially changing its state. Right? This is a science thing. This is proven. This is fact. This is not just me saying things. This is how science works, right? And so Schrodinger's cat, in like the most dumbed down version of it, what I remember learning in like elementary school, I learned this when I was a kid. Maybe I read it somewhere. Maybe I saw it on TV. Essentially, it's, say that you have like a cat, right? And it's in a box. You don't know what is in the box other than the cat. So for all you know, the cat is alive, right? Because it was alive when it was put in the box. And maybe in the box it has everything that it needs. However, what if in the box there is nothing or there is poison? This would mean that the cat would die, right? You wouldn't know, however, if the cat is alive or dead until you open the box to check, right? So by checking it, you are, in essence, changing the state of the cat or the course of events because you observed it and now you know, right? If you had observed it earlier and seen that there was nothing in the box, you would have felt drawn to, like, give the cat something so that it would survive. And again, you are changing it. Hello, Yasiel from Venezuela. Welcome, welcome. So, basically, this applies to, like, everything in the world, right? This applies to particles, this applies to photons, and that's what quantum entanglement is about, of course, because this is about, like, little tiny science things, not about a theoretical cat. But, to me, that is bizarre, and it ties into a lot of things, right? Because, as usual, I feel like I tend to relate things to other things, which is kind of what people do, right? That's what's called thinking. But what this made me think of also is we talked about the bystander effect a couple episodes ago. Maybe it was our first episode, about how people won't feel the need to do things because they think someone else will step in, or they'll feel like it's not their place to do something. And so I was taken aback a little bit while I was going down this rabbit hole of weird science, weird science investigations. You're welcome for the fun facts, Kui. And so I was like, it's crazy that like the way that particles will change if they are observed, that's how people perceive their own actions, right? And it's something that's come up with journalists also, how if they're reporting on like a natural disaster or some like event, they won't feel like they are able to participate or help out because they feel like they will change the natural course of action, and their job as a journalist is to report on things as they were without their interference. And it's interesting because we've obviously talked about this multiple times now, if you're a returning listener. If not, be aware that this comes up a lot, which is moral dilemmas and like your, I guess, ethical responsibility. So I was sitting here thinking like, wow, I've talked about that on the podcast, and I've talked about that it's just, life, about what people feel the need to do and how they think that their actions will affect something else. And it's crazy because that's literally how everything works. That's how particles work. If you look at a particle, that particle is now different than it was before you looked at it. That's crazy. So that was what kicked off this this rabbit hole of thoughts. And to sit here and pretend I understand what quantum entanglement even means is a bit far-fetched, but the fact that it kicked off this entire stream of consciousness, I think, was what was the most fun to me. Because then I found a lot of other things that I thought were more interesting than particles being affected. Yes, they are particularly different, as far as we know, because we don't know what the particle was before we looked at it. We only knew in theory. And this also, I mean, of course, has to do with, like, if you study it and actually, like, interact with it to see what would happen if you were to try to change it in any way. In which case you are deliberately changing it, so yes, it would be different. But, yeah, so from here, I went on to something completely unrelated. It was just science. I was just looking at weird science things. And this is my favorite thing that I have ever like stumbled upon by accident. And it is the elephant's foot in Chernobyl. If you guys know what the elephant's foot in Chernobyl is, this is gonna be like the most ridiculous segment because it is bizarre. To answer a question in chat, tonight's topic is not politics, but science, unfortunately. We talked briefly about the bystander effect and the ethics of journalism, but I think that's the extent of anything near political that we're getting tonight, unless it comes up naturally. That's just kind of how it happens. Before I get into elephant's foot, let me respond to chat about reggaeton, because we do speak about music in this show. I have grown to like it a lot. I didn't used to. I felt like it was very repetitive and redundant, but now I feel like it's one of my default like background music genres, because there's a lot of musical elements that you can focus on instead of lyrics. So reggaeton is good. I'm into it. So back to science, because I'm excited to talk about this elephant's foot thing, right? Essentially, it's like this large mass of like radioactive lava under Chernobyl. I think it was discovered. I don't think it was made by something or someone. I didn't get that far because I was distracted by like everything else about it, meaning that it was discovered under Chernobyl. It's made out of black corium with many layers, and it resembles tree bark and glass. Already, I'm shook. What does that mean? It's lava, but it resembles tree bark and glass, right? So I was sitting here thinking, like, okay, I guess, like, pictures of lava look like that, but it gets weirder, right? Okay, so it was formed during the Chernobyl disaster in April 1986, and it was discovered later in December, and it is named for its wrinkly appearance resembling the foot of an elephant. So yeah, it's radioactive lava. It's insane. It's crazy. And it gets worse. Okay? So apparently, if you were to like look at it or get close to it, it's radioactive enough that it would essentially like kill you like within 5 minutes. You would be hit with like the lethal dose of radiation in literally 5 minutes, which is crazy. All right? And they tried to take pictures of it and they weren't able to because it melted the cameras. The only pictures that they've been able to get of it was like with robots and taken from like mirrors. Like they couldn't even take photographs of it directly. It had to be photographed through a mirror. So it's essentially like what's her name in mythology, Medusa, or the basilisk in Harry Potter. I'm a nerd, I'm aware. Um, but that's how crazy this thing is, right? And it also like melted the floor, so like it went like all the way down like a bunch of stories, to where it like finally settled, and it like contaminated the drinking water. It led to a bunch of illness and a bunch of death, and it hasn't moved. It's just there. It's like gotten hotter because of nuclear decay, and it's just like ever present. It wasn't able to be, I remember reading, it wasn't able to be affected by like a drill, but they did shoot it with a Kalashnikov rifle. And so, you know, if you ever encounter the elephant's foot lava, just rest assured you can shoot it. For what? I don't know. Nothing's gonna happen to it, but you can shoot it. um, and then I also read something about, let me look this up. I don't know why I'm pretending I don't have the internet right here. Yes, so, essentially, they also found this mold that's just kind of eating it, and it is the only thing other than apparently Kalashnikov rifles um, that affects it. So this mold eats it. This mold like just feasts off of it. For what reason? I don't know, man. I am not a scientist, clearly, but that's it. Like that's what's been on my mind. It's just weird science things, dude. And this is one of them. Why is there a weird lava thing that can only be affected by being shot at or by weird mold? I don't understand. It's bizarre. How many other things do you think exist on this planet that we just haven't discovered yet and are just out here being toxic? Like people in chat hating on me for having an Android. Um, anyway, so that's been on my mind, and I want nothing more than to be able to, like, see this thing, but obviously, like, I can't. It's deadly. I don't know how this would ever be possible, but science is weird, man. And it just exists. Like, they can't do anything about it either, because they can't get near it, other than just, like, let this mold eat it. I don't know. Science is weird, dude. I see in the chat that somebody, Jordy, has a science question. Please, ask away. I would love to give you answers that I do not actually have. In the meantime, have, good luck doing your homework, Charlotte. I saw something about the reggaeton question. Where was this? Let me scroll up a little bit. It's crazy because here music is reggaeton 80%, 20% pop, but I see some love for R&B, rock, and country music. Wow, yeah, I would assume so, I guess, that the popularity of music is different in different countries, but that's interesting. I also like rock and country. I used to listen to R&B a lot, but not so much anymore. Okay, so the question that I saw was, how come we can eat some kinds of mold but not others? What defines the difference? My personal response would be just what it's made out of. I guess like how some mushrooms are poisonous and some aren't, and then other plants like rhubarb, you can't eat the leaves, but you can eat the fruit, or like if you eat a potato before it's ripe, it would be poisonous. So essentially, plants are weird. Mold is not a plant, it's something. But it's funny that this would come up because one of my friends is in a mycology class, and all she talks about is mushrooms and fungi and mold. and she thinks it's super interesting, and I've had no choice but to also find it interesting, which is the perfect segue into the next thing that's been on my mind. And this one's been on my mind in the past, just because, I'll explain that in a second, but it was on my mind again recently because, like I said, she's in this class, and she was talking about it, and mushrooms became like a topic of conversation the other day, so I learned a lot more about mushrooms than I ever thought I would want to know. But I will get there in a second. Is there a certain thing in mold that makes it a no-no? I have no idea. Why can't we eat mold? Why can't you eat mold? Let's ask Google. This episode is essentially just me going down a rabbit hole of science with a bunch of different people. It's because of, like, the bacteria that grows along with the mold, and it can cause allergic reactions and respiratory problems because in the right conditions they produce mycotoxins, which are the poisonous substance that makes you sick. So yeah, what it's made out of and what it produces. I love science. Science is so cool. The question asked in chat is, why are Bigfoot sightings linked with areas of high level of furries? I don't have the answer to that, but my prediction would be wishful thinking. Yes, that's good. Back to mushroom and fungi and mold. The cordyceps fungus is bizarre. It's insane. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about it on the podcast before. If not on the podcast, I definitely talked about it either on stream or during quarantine with a K last year. Which, side note, this is, I think today marks the start of the last week that things were normal, before, like, national quarantine started. Because I think we got sent home March 15th. So yeah, that gives us a week left of normal Snap and Facebook and Instagram memories before everything is just complaints about quarantine. So it's crazy how time passes. It's been a year of this nonsense. Cordyceps fungus. So I learned about this in The Last of Us, which I've mentioned before has been one of my favorite story games to keep up with. And in The Last of Us, the cordyceps fungus was like, it had evolved to become a brain infection in humans that led to people essentially becoming zombies, right? So there were the ones that just kind of like chased you and tried to eat you. There were the ones that kind of like grew different plant-like elements, and then also for some reason like sonar, like bats. And then there were ones that like had spores because they like got so big that they would like explode, and there were others that would just kind of like fossilize into more plants. But yeah, cordyceps, that's how I found out about it. And then in school I learned that it was an actual real thing, which is terrifying. Essentially what it does is it attacks a host, and the host is usually like, I think it's ants, but essentially just insects, and it invades and replaces the like their tissue, right? And basically leads them to like higher, warmer, damper locations so that it can like continue to sprout and spread its spores. So this fungus has like found a way to turn insects into zombies. And the fact that that does that to a living thing leads to the question, like, would it be possible for this to mutate to affect humans? And why wouldn't it, right? Because there's the situation we're in, right? There's a bunch of different viruses and stuff that start with animals and then mutate and evolve to the point where they can make humans sick from it. And so now an irrational fear that has grown from this rabbit hole, and also, just life and science in general, is that a zombie apocalypse would actually be possible should this cordyceps fungus grow to like actually affect humans. Like, what if you eat the wrong like mushroom, right? Or what if you're having a picnic and one of these infected ants gets on your sandwich and you eat it, and now you're infected and you turn into a plant zombie? What if that happens? I would cry, I think. Especially because seeing the way people have dealt with the pandemic does not give me a lot of hope for how people would deal with a zombie apocalypse. I'm scared. Long story short, I am scared. Has chat said anything about cordyceps? No. Chat is requesting slam poetry about fungi. Tune in next week where we do slam poetry about fungi. Y'all are gonna have to give me some time to prepare. Yes, and then the usual chaos. Request to say a phrase in Spanish or sing in Spanish. I'm not gonna sing on the podcast, but I do occasionally talk in Spanglish. So stay tuned for that. I don't know what to say. No me gustan los hongos y tengo miedo de que todos seamos zombies. I don't know how to say zombies in Spanish. Is there a word for zombies in Spanish? That's a good question. Oh, cool. I will check my phone later for the science picture, James. Also, all inventor in chat. Wilmer, hi. It would have to be a very improbable mutation since human biology is much more complex than ants. Okay, but chat, you can answer this or I will Google it. Would it be possible for it, like, in theory, it would be possible, right, for it to mutate to affect humans? Because here on the Wikipedia it says that cordyceps is used in traditional Chinese medicine, but there is no scientific evidence that their use has any clinical effect on human diseases. So if they're experimenting with using this in medicine, what if something goes wrong and it infects humans? What if that happens? I'm scared. Long story short, I'm scared of becoming a plant zombie. Like I said, this podcast is going to be a reflection of the rabbit hole of, like, weird Googling that I went through after finding out that Stephen Hawking said he doesn't even know where the universe goes. Which I guess none of us do. That's life, isn't it? Can cordyceps infect humans? Has already been Googled. Okay, so the explanation on Google search results is that cordyceps can't infect humans, as our bodies are better than insects at attacking pathogens. But in theory, I guess, it would continue to spread if for some reason you were in a space where it was growing. But I don't think it would turn you into a zombie. It wouldn't, like, revive you and turn you into The Last of Us. Chat says plant zombies are gonna take over the government. Okay. I wouldn't doubt it. I feel like there would be a lot of them, and we would not know how to deal with it. But as far as the internet goes, it would appear that we are currently safe from becoming plant zombies. So that is a relief. But yeah, I went down that rabbit hole for a while. And then from there, I jumped into immortal animals. I don't know how I got there, probably just clicking through things about which animals were affected by cordyceps and then the general Googling. But I remember learning about jellyfish. There's a jellyfish that is essentially immortal because what it does is once it ages and reproduces, it resets itself. So it, like, ages and then de-ages. So it just continues to go down this cycle for, like, mad long. And the only way it really dies is if it's killed. And so I was like, wait, are there more of these, like, immortal, quote-unquote, animals? Because this one, I mean, sea creatures in general are bizarre. But this jellyfish is called the Turritopsis dohrnii. That is a terrible pronunciation, I assume. But it is technically the only truly, quote-unquote, again, immortal creature. Just because in this process, it doesn't, like, deteriorate, question mark, if that's the right word. Because lobsters, apparently, also have the potential of being immortal. However, they, like, outgrow their own, like, exoskeletons. So, essentially, the way that the jellyfish is immortal is because it, I don't know, it resets its cycle, and it's bizarre, right? like they can be eaten, but that's pretty much it. Lobsters, however, have the ability to repair their DNA, and so they can like continuously repair their DNA, which prevents them from like getting old or aging. However, because they don't like get old or die, like they keep growing and they essentially outgrow their exoskeleton. So unfortunately, lobsters are like semi-immortal because if they were able to, like, I guess like crabs switch shells or something, they would maybe be able to continue surviving in theory, but because they outgrow their exoskeleton, they just don't have the energy to I think regrow it is what I was reading. I'm trying to find it here, is why if you're watching you keep seeing me look over to the other monitor. But yeah, okay, so the energy required to molt a shell and grow another one is too much for the lobster, so it succumbs to exhaustion or predation or shell collapse, which is sad. Rip lobsters. But they're almost immortal, which is crazy. Why are sea creatures so resilient? Oh, and then hydras. Hydras are also immortal in a similar way, but they have a different gene that I think also worms have, which it also, okay, so this is the one that prevents them from aging, because whenever the scientists prevented them from have like from that gene from functioning, they didn't regenerate as quickly as they did before. So yeah, these are all sea creatures. Why are sea creatures like this? And I've also read before that because there's so much space in the sea for things to grow, that's why sea animals are so big compared to animals on land, or to like goldfish, for example, like pet fish, and like animals that grow in captivity or in aquariums. Because if they have the space, a lot of sea animals just keep growing, which is, again, ridiculous and terrifying, and the ocean is scary. I love how quickly this has turned into things that are irrationally terrifying. I see in chat here, eels are a species that we have yet to fully know how and where they reproduce, which makes them elusive. Crayfish do switch shells, I believe, yes. So please, if you would like, elaborate on what you mean about eels, because I would love to know more about eels. All I really know is there are electric eels? Question mark? Are those real, or is that just a thing that I learned from cartoons and thought was real? Let's find out, shall we? Electric eels are indeed real. Cool. Love that. Good to know. I will say, kind of in the spirit of going down tangents of my train of thought, I didn't think multiple platypus, yes, those, I didn't think they were real. I thought it was just a creature from Phineas and Ferb. Then turns out they are real and poisonous, which is kind of cool. And then whenever I went home, I think from college a year or two ago, I found like these old like little science books we had, or maybe it was like a National Geographic magazine, and platypi were in it, and I was like, so I've known that platypi were real, and I just never realized that I knew that platypi were real. That's cool. Yes, they're semi-aquatic. They're the only mammal that lays eggs. But they are poisonous. On their hind foot, they have a spur that can deliver venom capable of causing severe pain to humans. Yeah, platypi. I'm ashamed to admit that I only really acknowledged that they were real animals a couple years ago. But yeah, eels, electric eels, until 2019 were classified as the only species in their genus. And they're not even real eels, they're knife fish. That's crazy. And they're able to produce electricity. You know what else is weird about animals? Bioluminescence, like animals that are able to like glow in the dark. That's bizarre. Narwhals, yeah. Narwhals, I don't know who said something recently, but they didn't realize narwhals were real. And the only way that I knew narwhals were real was because One of my best friends in high school was obsessed with them, and I did not think they were real. Also, I was like, yo, like whale unicorns, that can't exist. Turns out that they do indeed exist, which is also very interesting. Mac in chat says, look up dead zones. It's areas in the water where literally nothing can live because oxygen is so low because the algae just slurps it up. Are plants just evil? Is that what we're learning right now? Are fungi plants? That's also a good question. Dead zones. Isn't one of the theories of the Bermuda Triangle something to do with, like, the gases that are in that area? They just kind of, like, pull everything down or something like that? Let's look that up also. Okay, so let's find out about dead zones first, right? This has to do with the National Ocean Service. Is a more common term for hypoxia, which refers to reduced levels of oxygen in water. Most marine life in these zones either die or just simply leave. They simply say, I'ma head out. What a weird episode this is, but it's fine. This is the type of podcast I would listen to. At least I think this is entertaining. I am so sorry if you came here for political discussion or more moral dilemmas. I know that's usually where these shows end, but after and also the play and stuff we were recording was concerning social issues of prejudice and racism in the South. So I think I'm just a little burnt out on that. Perhaps we'll return with more of that next week. But for now, weird science things. Yes. So the Bermuda Triangle. We're gonna back up on conspiracy theories. I remember reading something about there's a theory about essentially like the gases that are produced, but I don't know what produces them. I don't think it's plants. Watch it be plants, dude. If it was plants, that would be pretty concerning. I'm starting to not trust plants, which is a weird sentence to say. Although if you are watching this instead of listening to it, I got a new plant. I put it in this cup that looks like a cactus. I'm excited about it. I remember reading a post one time about someone being scared of having plants in their room because they were scared that they would, like, suck up all the oxygen, which sounds like the opposite of logical because plants produce oxygen, right? Yeah, that is correct. That is that is a fact. I don't know why I'm pretending to not know science all of a sudden. Okay, so Bermuda Triangle time. Wait, hold on. In chat I am seeing that succulents produce their own sunscreen. That's cool. Is that why, like, they prefer the sun and, like, little water? They're just able to, like, protect themselves super efficiently against the sun? Also in chat, wasn't there a movie where plants started to produce carbon dioxide in order to murder humans? I was unaware of this, but if you know what that movie is called, please let me know immediately because I would like to watch it. So the powder outside isn't dust, it's protection. Oh, okay. So that's why succulents always look a little hazy? That's so cool. See, I love this show because it leads to learning, and I love having the interaction of chat. If you listen to this show live on WECS 90.1 FM, or if just later on Spotify, anchor.fm/podcast with a K, you wouldn't have seen the plant, but yes, my plant does have that little haze to it. I'm seeing in chat that Yosel has a little cactus. Oh, that's cool. Do you know what type of cactus it is? I love plants. I recently got into plants more. A few years ago, I think, marked the start of my interest in them when, on a whim at a local, like, farm type store, there were strawberries outside, and I was like, yo, that's crazy. They're just growing here in the city. And the guy was like, yeah, they take really well to the soil here. And he gave me, like, a little sprout of strawberries, and I planted it. And over winter, all but one of the, like, little sprigs died. And I was like, oh man, I killed the strawberries. And then whenever spring came around, that one sprouted more little other, what are they called, like vines, and they kind of planted themselves because I had at this point shamefully given up on the strawberries, and they sprouted, and now they're all over the front of the garden, and they've started to infiltrate my neighbor's area, but as far as I know, they don't mind. They haven't complained, and they seem to enjoy the strawberries, because every time that there are strawberries, they comment on it. Um, yes, what was I talking about before this? The Bermuda Triangle. So, we all know that there are, like, the conspiracy theory, like, paranormal explanations, aliens, as always. Or, like, it being, like, a wormhole to somewhere else. Methane is the gas. Methane hydrates. So, one theory is that there are large fields of methane hydrates. And the... What am I reading? Oh, so it decreases the density of the water. That's why. So I feel like that is my favorite theory that I read on how it works. Because other natural explanations that are listed here on Wikipedia, the world's most trustworthy site, is just compass variations, the Gulf Stream, human error, or violent weather. But I feel like there's just been so many, like, unexplained disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle that there has to be some, like, external cause other than just, like, weather or, like, people not knowing how to sail. Because doesn't it also affect planes sometimes? I feel like I've read that it affects planes. Again, this is my stream of consciousness from things that I have seen in passing. I did not prepare for this. But yeah, methane hydrates, wow. I wonder how many other things too, like flights that go missing in different parts of, like, usually it's over the oceans. I wonder how much of this is affected by things like that, just, like, like gases and stuff like that, just normal sciencey things that we just haven't checked for. So I feel like at this point we know a lot, but we can't possibly know everything. Let's see. Oh, quicksand is also weird. I've never encountered quicksand either, Mac, but quicksand is something that I was led to believe would be more impactful in my life. Which I'm glad it's not, because it is also an irrational fear of mine to stumble upon quicksand, especially because I like hiking, and something I comment a lot whenever I go hiking with people is, like, there's places where you can feel, like, when the ground has a lot of debris because it feels hollow. Like, if you're walking on, like, pretty well-packed soil, like, you know, it's just, it's dirt, it's a solid ground, but, there's a place near here, called Diana's Pool, and it's really pretty, it's like a waterfall, there's, a lot of people go there to do photography, but whenever you start hiking towards, like, the deeper woods, there are parts of it where, like, you can feel that the ground is just fallen leaves, and it feels hollow. It's like if you were walking, like, on a rotted tree trunk, and it's weird because it always makes me think of quicksand. I don't like it. What else was mentioned in chat? Oh, The Happening is the name of the film, not the one you were thinking about, but a close second. I am immediately adding that to my watch list on Letterboxd, because that's a thing that I do now. Also, Amelia Earhart getting eaten by crabs or something. Dude, so that was one of my, like, not favorite, I feel like that's a little morbid to say, but that's one of the most interesting things I've read. I remember seeing, I think I saw that, like, on a BuzzFeed Unsolved video, how they mentioned that being a theory, and they thought it was, like, preposterous and ridiculous, and they had a great time just making fun of the theory. One of them said it was his favorite, the other one I think was just, like, criticizing it. Because most people had kind of thought it was more probable that she was either lost at sea or to starvation. And then I think, like, I got a Twitter news notification, like, a couple years afterwards, saying that it was most likely agreed upon that she had definitely encountered the coconut crabs on that island. And coconut crabs also are another thing that are terrifying. I've mentioned before that astrology is a very, like, fleeting interest of mine. Sometimes I read into it, sometimes I don't. And so, long story short, I'm a Cancer, and the sign for Cancer is a crab, and so I tend to like crabs, but coconut crabs are terrifying. And for a while I was like, dude, I don't ever want to see another crab again. They're massive, And, like, they're called that because they can, like, snap coconuts. And you know how strong you have to be to snap a coconut? I bought coconut once because I wanted, like, fresh coconut because I like coconut. And I've said the word coconut, like, 8 times in a sentence. But that's alright. And I could not open it. I, like, had to take, like, a hammer and, like, a screwdriver to it to, like, get the coconut milk out. And I know that's not how you open a coconut, alright? I'm not a coconut expert. I am just, at this point, I think I was just a teenager who was trying to kill some time. But yes, they found the bones, but they think that crabs ate them. Right. Yeah. So that's what happened. Petition to make this a conspiracy theory podcast. Mac, I feel like there's too much that's going on in the world consistently for this to be solely conspiracy theories, but please rest assured that conspiracy theories come up a lot. Are coconut crabs filled with coconut juice? Probably, if they eat all of those coconuts. But as our time draws to a close, because I've been talking about nothing at all for almost an hour, I do want to mention that one of the one of my favorite conspiracy theories that we've talked about in the past is about the moon and, like, its effects and its purpose. And it's also something that is weird that I don't understand. This one scientists do understand, which is how it controls the tides. I've never cared enough to look it up, which is dumb because obviously I care about the moon and science, but not this one in particular. But one of my favorite conspiracy theories is that, like, a full moon also affects, like, behavior, and that's more so just kind of like a weird, like, theory than belief that people hold. But my concept is still, if the ocean is all water, right, and people are, like, 70-ish% water, why would the moon not affect people, right? Because I feel like that's, it's also joked upon a lot. I know someone recently said that, like, because one of my friends is a teacher, and, like, one of their, like, running jokes amongst the teachers is whenever it's a full moon, they're expecting the kids to be chaotic, and I'm like, see, there's some truth in here. And also I feel like animals also act a little weirder with the full moon, but that's, again, just personal theory. And by personal, I mean something that, you know, the internet kind of says and thinks. In chat, someone said, people who can't open coconuts are stupid. Beanie Josh is officially banned from chat for saying this because I'm not stupid. I'm very smart. I just don't know how to open a coconut because that's not a skill that I've needed in my life, you know? Jordy says she can never sleep during a full moon. During a full moon, I usually don't sleep a lot, but I also either can't sleep at all, or I'll sleep for, like 12 hours. Like, I'll catch up on all the sleep that I didn't get when it wasn't a full moon. And I wonder if it has to do with the moon each time. And my mom has always said that, like, during a full moon, she's more prone to, like, headaches or also, like, trouble sleeping. So, I don't know. The moon is weird. Yes. That's a good takeaway to get from there. Speaking of conspiracy theories, can we talk about Area 51? Dude, I am so upset that we were not able to storm Area 51 so that we could see them aliens. But it most definitely is where they're hiding all of the secrets. And in my hometown, there is a, like, backroads type area. It's going more towards, like, the countryside away from the city. And there's a sign that says Area 51, and I'm pretty sure it's for, like, a store or something, but I've never actually seen the store or, like, the place that you would go inside to. It's just, like, a sign that says Area 51, and every time that we've driven past it, I was always like, we should stop here and see what this is referring to, and we never stopped there. And last time I was home, I didn't see that sign, so I feel like I missed my chance to see aliens. But, yeah, I don't know. That's what's been on my mind this week. And by this week, I mean mostly these past 3 days when I've done nothing but work and then have way too much time to think. Because, you know, whenever you're doing big projects and you have to take, like, breaks in between, like, set changes and stuff, you don't really have time to do anything else. like, before going to film, it's not like I want to start other homework or other projects, and then after I'm too exhausted to, like, again, start more homework or more projects. So this has just been what I've been doing. It's just scrolling and learning about new things that I should be afraid of, probably. But, yes, we're just about at the top of the hour. I feel like this episode has been chaotic enough with just me speaking and chat participating, so for that I thank you. Thank you to everyone who has hung out in chat, come to say hi, or asked a question, or given me something new to look up. Much appreciated, as always. Thank you so much for listening. If you're watching this live right now, thank you for your presence. If you're watching this in the future when it airs on WCS or on Spotify or on YouTube, or in 500 years when we all have chips implanted in our brains so that we can consume content all the time, thank you so much for paying attention to the show, even after the fact. But anyway, this has been Podcast with a K, and I'm your host, Karla with a K, signing off. One last message is that Android is not inferior to Apple, and this is a hill I will fight to the death on. That is that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all next week. To sign off, I leave y'all with Bastille's Comfort of Strangers, because Bastille celebrated recently 8 years since their first album. The song is not from their first album, it's from their most recent, but it is Bastille nonetheless. So, yes, have a fantastic week, and I'll see y'all next week at the same time, same station /channel with new nonsense and maybe new guests. Bye!